if you've never experienced happiness before, then you don't even know what really brings you happiness. What you might be experiencing in life sometimes is just relief from misery. But relief from misery is very different from happiness. It's very different from joy. Happiness can be like this. How do you know when you have found it if you don't know what it is? You have to know what it is in order to know that you have found it. For some reason, it's the positive thing. Like we'll search up what is love, what is happiness, because happiness and love are oftentimes like glicks. You don't know what it is, so you don't even know where to start looking for it. And even if you did know where to start looking for it, you wouldn't know when to stop looking for it because you wouldn't even know that you have found it. But you can't know. You can't know until you do it. You can imagine what a life without worries is like. And maybe the problem isn't that you have worries. Maybe the problem is that you're worrying about the things you could overcome. Or maybe if you could shift your mindset a little bit and overcome those things, the problems in your life would no longer be worries. The problems in your life would now be opportunities to be better, to excel, to achieve. And on the other side of that achievement might be your happiness and your joy. I mean, if you think about what a life without these things is like, it's like there's no accomplishment, there's no achievement. I don't know if there's any meaning in that. I don't know if there's any purpose in that. I'm not satisfied. How come I can't get satisfied? Maybe it's because the desires that you have are not for this world, but they're for another world. Yeah. Because I guess if you're in misery, all that you know is that you kind of like base where you want to be off of where you're not. So it'd be like saying, well, my present situation sucks. And so I just kind of imagine I'd want it to be the opposite of what it is. So if I'm poor, I'd want to be rich. If I was short, I'd want to be tall. If I have a crummy singing voice, I want to have a nice singing voice. And we imagine that a better life is one that's just kind of opposite ours. But start thinking now about those characteristics I'm talking about. Tall versus short, rich versus poor, crummy singing voice versus beautiful singing voice. What's missing from that? Well, a lot of things. But you'd never know it. You would never know what it is that you're missing if you've never experienced it before. If this makes any sense. So, for example, one of the features of growing up in Los Angeles, I grew up in Los Angeles, is that you have neighborhoods, like really wealthy neighborhoods, that sit right next to really crappy neighborhoods, you know? And here in San Diego, if you live like in National City or downtown or whatever, the neighborhoods kind of blend together, where you've got, okay neighborhoods and crummy neighborhoods, but everything kind of blends together. And in Los Angeles, you have this like stark contrast. I'm talking like these really crappy apartment complexes that are all indoors, that were built like in the 1920s, that just reek of bleach on the weekends, right next to neighborhoods that are multi-million-dollar mansions. And there's no denying, if you're poor there, you know that you're poor. It's obvious. And it's obvious by a bunch of facets. But one time I remember I was staying on Sunset Boulevard with some friends of mine, and we're in Echo Park, where we grew up, and all my friends were all poor. When the freeways get backed up over there, cars would get off of the freeway and then take Sunset Boulevard. And Sunset Boulevard runs all the way from like downtown way up to like Brentwood, Beverly Hills, all the neighborhoods that we see in movies and TV shows. So one day I remember I was staying on Sunset Boulevard with a few of my friends, and this Lamborghini just goes down the street. And this is a car that costs more than, it's probably twice as much as our houses cost, just going down the street. And we're all just, and one of my friends just goes, "Fuck, man, we're poor." and he was angry about it. And it hadn't occurred to us for some reason before that. I mean, we kind of knew, but just articulating it like that just really hit us home. We were like, hey, he's right. We really are poor. When you see someone driving a car down the street that gets like 8 miles to the gallon, that literally costs twice as much as your house, just that car, it hits you. And it wasn't like we hate that guy for being rich. It was just like, our situation just sucks. And it was that contrast. We were standing there and we didn't have any money, we were just kind of walking around because it was just, summer, just what you do. And it wasn't like a jealousy of like, but it was life would be better if we had air conditioning and we were sitting inside of a $500,000 sports car with air conditioning. That would probably, our lives we think would be better. In other words, you start constructing your life as the opposites of what presently is. It's like, I'm unhappy right now. Why am I unhappy? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have any money. Maybe it's because I don't have any, I have a crappy singing voice. Maybe it's because I'm short. But the real things of your life that cause you to be joyous and happy, you might not have ever experienced them before. And that might be why you're miserable. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you've never experienced happiness before, then you don't even know what really brings you happiness. What you might be experiencing in life sometimes is just relief from misery. But relief from misery is very different from happiness. It's very different from joy. I don't know if that makes sense. So when you ask, like, what is it that could possibly bring like a permanent state of happiness? Well, you have to look at the things that you're missing. But the thing about it is that you wouldn't even know what you're missing because you've never experienced it before. I talk about the glick in this class with you guys? No? All right, so it's kind of a long story, but I'll make it really short. I'll make it short as I possibly can. Let's say I'm up here talking to you guys. And as I go to reach my coffee, I trip. I bang my head into the railing here. I hit the ground and I start bleeding out of my head. Let's say it's really bad though, and I'm dying. And let's just pretend like you guys cared. So you came over and you're like, whoa, damn, Alan's dying. And then with my dying breath, I say to you, take Nzunza a glick. Take Ms. Nzunza a glick. And I go, and I die. Now, let's say that you guys were going to fulfill my last wish, my dying wish. So first off, who is Nzunza? The principal. Okay, so now you know where to start. Now, what's a glick? You don't know what a glick is? Oh my goodness. Then how could you possibly give Ms. Nzunza a glick? So how would you start finding out what a glick is? What's that? You search it, can't find it, not on Google. So it must be a slang term for something. Now what could you do? So maybe go to Ask Nzunza. Hey, Scanlon just died in the classroom, but he told us to give you a glick. What? He died? That's not the important thing. Nothing can be done now. He's already dead, and he will be missed. But he said before he died to take you a glick. Do you know what that is? We wanted to fulfill that wish. And she's like, I don't know. He was kind of you guys had him for a few months. He was a little off the wall. He would stand up at meetings sometimes and just talk about glicks. But nobody ever knew what the heck he was talking about. Okay, well, can we find one? He hung out at Home Depot a lot. Maybe if you go to Home Depot and you ask them, they might be able to help you with the glick. So then, field trip, you all go to Home Depot, and you walk in, the person at the door is greeting you. Sorry. And as you walk in, they say, hi, welcome to Home Depot. Hey, we're here looking for a glick. Do you guys sell glicks? And the guy's like, you know what, that's a heck of a question. People come in here all the time looking for glicks. I don't know what that is. I just know that they usually head down towards the home and gardening section. So you walk down to the home and gardening section, and there's a person working there, and you ask them, hey, do you guys sell glicks? Dude, you're like the 10th person today to come asking for that. Do you guys know Scanlon? Yeah, that guy. People are in here looking for glicks because of him. I don't know what that is. I just know it's red. People always ask if we have glicks, and they just tell us that it's red, but I have no idea what that is. So you're standing in the home and gardening section, and you just have a suggestion that it might be red. So you then split up and say, okay, grab one of everything that's red. Anything, just go down the aisles, grab one of everything. And then so at the end, you have a big pile of stuff, and it's red. Red packaging, red products. If there's red lettering, whatever, it's there. So then you stare at the pile and you go, all right, well, the glick is in here. So at least we know we have it. And then there's going to be that one person among you, I'm not sure who it is though, who's the philosopher who will say, we don't know what's in there. Because Nzunza didn't know what it was. She just told us he hung out at Home Depot. At Home Depot, they said they didn't know what it was, but that people who get it usually head towards the home and gardening section. That doesn't mean it's in there. It could be in the plumbing, but maybe they're going to the home and garden section because they're just as lost as we are. Maybe they don't know what it is. And then the person here said, oh, I think it's red, but they don't know that it's red, and they don't know if the product is red. They don't know, and that's just assuming that they even have it in stock. Maybe it's one of the things that was out of stock. So the thing is that you might have a glick in there, but you don't know it. You follow? Happiness can be like this. How do you know when you have found it if you don't know what it is? You have to know what it is in order to know that you have found it. This is why if you go into Google and you type in what is, a lot of times it'll complete that sentence for you by asking what is love. Because I wonder how many of you have ever wondered, am I in love right now? Because you don't know. Because you've never experienced it before. And maybe you have experienced it before, so maybe it is in the pile, but you don't know you found it. You follow? Interestingly enough, have any of you ever had to search what is suffering? Anybody ever broken a bone or something? Or you've like banged your head into something and you're hurting? Do you go to Google and go, what is suffering? Because you want to know if you're suffering. You don't have to look that up. You know when you're suffering. All those negative emotions, we know when we're feeling those negative things, but for some reason it's the positive things. Like we'll search up what is love, what is happiness? Because happiness and love are oftentimes like glicks. You don't know what it is, so you don't even know where to start looking for it. And even if you did know where to start looking for it, you wouldn't know when to stop looking for it because you wouldn't even know that you have found it. And this is why people, oftentimes you've heard of like a midlife crisis where people will all of a sudden one day wake up and freak out over their lives. And they're sitting there with their spouse and their kids and their house and everything, and they're just like, oh my God, is this what life is all about? And then they'll go buy a convertible car or something like that, They'll go do something wild. And oftentimes you'll see this is called the 7-year itch. If you've ever heard of this before. A lot of times relationships break up at the 7th year. A lot of marriages break up at the 7th year because that's when people will stop and reassess and go like, is this what I really want? And oftentimes when those relationships get blown out of the water, people will look back and go, I regret that. That was what I wanted, but they didn't know it until they lost it. And this is why they'll say, you don't know what you had until you lost it, because you don't know what a glick is until you found it. Oftentimes don't know what things are until you've lost them. If I were to ask you what makes you happy, you probably couldn't tell me. You could probably tell me what's made you happy in the past, or at least what's made you what you think is happy in the past. Like, what makes me happy? I don't know, buffalo wings, I suppose. What makes you happy? Family and friends? But is there a greater happiness out there that you could achieve? Maybe. But here's the thing, you won't even know where to start looking for it. And even if you knew where to start looking for it, you wouldn't know you found it until even if you arrive at it. So the point is how do you find happiness then? Well, then happiness can't be pursued. You can't go looking for happiness. I wonder how many of you, if for example, family and friends make you happy, do you sit there in your classes and go, I want more friends because I want to be happier? Is that how you found your first friend? I have no friends. I want to be happy, so let me find a friend. Or did you find your first friend because you were sitting there in preschool or whatever? Hi, my name is Bella. What's your name? You're my friend now. And then all of a sudden you go home and tell your mom, I found a friend, and you're all happy about it. In other words, what came first, the friend or the happiness? Probably the friend. And then you said, this makes me happy. Some of you guys, there are two things I really love reading in this class. I love reading your letters of introduction. Some of them are so good, man. It's almost like it's like a melancholy sometimes because I read your letters and I just think, man, this is so good. And I take notes on I have like a especially where I take notes on your letters. And then I throughout the year I go back and I look at them again, and sometimes I'll just be thinking, man, this person has so much cool stuff to say, but they don't talk in class. Or I'll read your journals and I'll be like, man, I wish you had said that in class. That would have been a great point to make. We hide from it, but in those letters that you guys write, that's a recurring theme. Looking for happiness, wanting to be happy, and what we think is going to make us happy. But the truth is that what makes most of us feel happy really does oftentimes lead us headlong into harm. because we think like, oh, my friends will make me happy. So then you start to see like little divisions with friends. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll compromise yourself just to have friends. You'll compromise your views, you'll compromise your values, you'll compromise your time, you'll compromise whatever, just because you're really hoping to gain that happiness. But happiness in that sense is almost like a drug, really, in that you have that initial happiness because you have friends, and you're trying to maintain that even as friendships start to split apart. And so we'll compromise ourselves just so we can keep our friend group, because we're hoping to be as happy today as we were back then. So happiness, again, is something that you can't really pursue. You can't really chase after it. Because again, the things that make us happy oftentimes lead us into harm. But happiness instead is something that has to ensue. It has to come from something that you're presently doing. So how do you know what makes you happy? Do it and feel it. Would skydiving make you happy? I don't know. You can't know until you do it. And if the parachute doesn't open, your last thought might be, this didn't make me happy. Maybe the parachute opens and you're that person who gets so scared that you pee your pants. And you think, didn't make me happy. Or maybe that person just loves it and you're like, dude, jumping out of perfectly good planes at 30,000 feet makes me happy. I don't know. But what I was gonna say about the letters is some of you guys have really weird, I shouldn't say weird, I will though. Some of you have really weird hobbies. One of my students crochets. Who the hell under the age of 85 crochets? Yeah. Well, one of my students crochets, and she talks about how it makes her happy. And I'd like to ask her, like, how did it make you happy? Like, did you sit there and go, I want to find something to make me happy. I'm going to start crocheting. Probably not. She probably crocheted because someone in her family did, so she tried it, and while she was trying it, she goes, this makes me happy. Interesting. I never would have done that. If I had pulled that person aside at some point and asked her, hey, you want to crochet? She probably would have been like, ew, what am I, 90? No, but just give it a shot. No, I don't want to. But by doing it, she found something that made her happy. She didn't pursue happiness. Happiness ensued. It came from what she was doing. And a lot of times happiness is like this. It has to come from something that you're doing. It can't be pursued, because think about it, like what you like changes daily, a lot of things. What's your favorite song? Was it the same favorite song that you had 3 weeks ago or a month ago or 2 months ago? Is it the same favorite song you're gonna have a year from now? Think about the musical acts that you liked when you were in 6th grade. Do you cringe now and try to take them off of your playlist because you don't want people to know that you actually liked them? And think about who you're gonna like in 10 years. You can't even imagine what you're gonna like in 10 years. Our tastes are all over the place. They shift and they change, just like our friend groups. And so you can't bank on it and say, this one thing is gonna make me happy. While it makes you happy, you can enjoy it and think that that's great. But you wouldn't have experienced it. And that's what happens a lot of times with people who are in misery. People who have no worries. They imagine, my life would be better if I had no worries. You can't know that. You've never lived a life without worries before. Maybe the problem isn't that you have worries. Maybe the problem is how you approach your worries. Because don't you gain a lot of satisfaction, I had that word earlier, from overcoming difficulties, overcoming challenges? Isn't that where a lot of your joy and your happiness and your self-worth comes from? It's like, wow, I did that. I overcame that. I don't know if any of you are artists, and I don't know, I don't know if anybody in here is like a musician. Have you ever written something, like played something and go, holy crap, I wrote that? That's really good. And it even impresses you. There's almost no better feeling in the world. And that's why you want people to hear it. And you're like, people have to hear this. And even if other people don't like it, you still might be like, whatever, I like this. That came from me. Sometimes you ever see something that came from you and you're like, oh crap, that came from me? I experienced that a few days a week when I upload these videos. Oh crap, I said that to the class. But you can't know. You can't know until you do it. You can imagine what a life without worries is like. But maybe the problem isn't that you have worries. Maybe the problem is that you're worrying about the things you could overcome. So maybe if you could shift your mindset a little bit and overcome those things, the problems in your life would no longer be worries. The problems in your life would now be opportunities to be better, to excel, to achieve. And on the other side of that achievement might be your happiness and your joy. I mean, if you think about what a life without these things is like, it's like there's no accomplishment, there's no achievement. I don't know if there's any meaning in that. I don't know if there's any purpose in that. And you'll see this. Don't you know people like this who don't seem to have a lot of problems in their life and they act like cats? You know what I mean by that? They're sitting there just like, I don't know, I've got a nice house, pretty privileged. Oh my God, why me? You know, they just like knock stuff off the table, and they do something in their lives to create some drama. And then maybe they're not doing it consciously, but then they're like, oh my God, why did this happen? And you can sit there and go, because you brought drama into your life that you didn't have to bring into your life. I know, I should have known better. Because it was boring. I have to do something to create some drama. So maybe the desires and the experiences that we're seeking, maybe we can't satisfy them, and there's a yearning inside of us to satisfy something just because we haven't experienced that satisfaction yet. In fact, what he's getting at here is that maybe, or at least most probably, that the desires and that the desires that you have that can't be satisfied, but there's something in you that keeps yearning and saying, I'm not satisfied. How come I can't get satisfied? Maybe it's because the desires that you have are not for this world, but they're for another world. And so, see me in 12th grade for more about that, third quarter. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Friday. Not terrible.